My friends, what is going on? Welcome to another episode of Diner Talks with James. I'm James, and I'm super pumped to be here with you today, y'all. What are you going to be having? You want a malted shake? What do you want? You want something? You want like a classic eggs and bacon? What are we doing today over here, my friends? You let me know. Just slide into the booth and let's have a good time. I'm really excited for today's episode. We have a woman on. Her name goes by the name of LGO, aka Laura Gassner Otting. And she is an incredible human being. She wrote a Washington Post best-selling book, Limitless, How to Create Your Own Path, Live Your Best Life. And she also wrote, Limitless, How to Ignore Everybody, Create Your car. I'm a professional speaker, everybody. I'm just nervous. I'm really excited about this one. Let's try that again. Y'all, we're here today with the one and only Laura Gassner Otting, aka LGO. She is the author of the Washington Post best-selling book, Limitless, How to Ignore Everybody, Carve Your Own Path, and Live Your Best Life. She also wrote another awesome book called Mission Driven. She helps people get unstuck and achieve extraordinary results. She served on Hillary Clinton's National Finance Committee. Then she was asked to do a TEDx talk. And then her whole life changed. She became a professional speaker. But before that, she served as a presidential appointee in Bill Clinton's White House, where she helped shape AmeriCorps. She's worked for big companies you've heard of. She's worked for startups that you've heard of. Her passion for nonprofit and philanthropic work truly speaks for itself. Through her commitment to give back, she helped build a local Montessori school, co-founded a women's philanthropic initiative, advised the startup National Women's PAC, grew a citizen leadership development program, and completed 3 charity-inspired marathons. Not 3, think I'll go run a marathon, 3 charity-inspired marathon. She lives in Boston, which is maybe the only unfortunate piece about her, but we'll talk about that in a minute. She has 2 teenage sons and a hysterical and adorable Doberman Pinscher. You should follow her on Instagram, Hey LGO, to get your daily dose of your daily Dober. Let's bring her out right now. LGO.
Hello, James. It is so good to be here.
What is up, my friend?
My God, that was a long introduction. I'm hungry. What's your favorite diner meal? I got to know this.
Favorite diner meal depends on what time of day we're going. If we're going late at night, often I'm a grilled cheese with bacon and French fries. But I also have been known to crush a stack of pancakes.
All right.
So,
See,
yeah.
I go breakfast all day long at a diner. I gotta do the breakfast, and it's got to be like the Hungry Man special where they give you like a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like commitment issues to breakfast, I guess. I don't know.
Get the sausage and the bacon, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you want the eggs? Yes. Do you want the pancakes? Yes. Do you want the French toast? Yes. The answer, here's the theme. Yes.
Yes.
I want it all. I'm limitless.
I want to be that person at the table that everybody else has to rearrange their plates because I'm having more plates delivered.
Yes. And a friend of mine, mentioned that I run 3 marathons. I'm actually running my 4th on Monday, a week from today. And I have a friend that I run with, and the runs that we do, we end up running, you run through like 4 cities when you're running a 20-mile training run, but we always end at this one particular diner. And she, the first time, ordered a toasted blueberry muffin. So they cut the muffin in half, they toast it, and then they butter it. And I got to tell you, it's a revelation. I just had no idea that this didn't even existed in the world. And it's changed my life.
It is a pro tip that diners have figured out. Yeah. I went to, I now live in the Midwest. I'm born and raised in New York, but I now live in the Midwest. So Perkins are really big out here, and Perkins are known for their baked goods. And so I asked them, can you toast the muffin? And you would have think I asked this woman for like a lobster bisque and in the middle of Minnesota.
Like a chicken Saint Marcan, please.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Duck l'orange. She was like, I don't understand. I literally had to explain it to her. And when she brought it out to me, she's like, all of the chefs are now toasting muffins and eating them, and they just want to say thank you. So
have you ever had a toasted glazed donut?
Have I ever had? Yes, I have.
Because that's the bomb.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. It's a messy
like
process.
A bagel. Well, I mean, so is diabetes, right? Which is the next step in the process. But yeah, you toast it like a bagel, you slather some butter on it, you stick it on the griddle, and then you just it's like a spoon. It's just syrup. It's
incredible.
Delicious. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Anyway, I'm sure all the people listening to this podcast who are interested in like entrepreneurship and coaching and leadership tips are like, what the hell are they talking about?
Well, it's funny because you jumped the gun and read ahead. Well done. Great student. But the first question I always ask somebody is, what do you normally order at a diner?
Oh.
And so here we go. You jumped.
Here we go.
I love it. So you're actually right on track.
I've always wanted to be the star student. Unfortunately, I was mostly drunk and stoned in high school and college. So I never was the star student. So I can start now. It's perfect.
It's perfect. It's never too late, they say. It's never
too late.
Yeah. Now, are you born and raised in the Northeast? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in New York City, James.
I've heard of it.
And I was raised in Miami, Florida.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
It took a hard left there.
Yeah. So I can punch you in the face in 2 languages, basically, is what that says.
That's what I'm picking up. Yeah, I love that. So born and raised in Miami. How old were you when you moved down to Miami?
So my dad is a retired surgeon. And when after I was born, he joined the military because that's what everybody had to do at the time. It was during the Vietnam era. And he was given the option either to move to Texas or to move to Florida because he was in the Air Force and he was he was being brought into the service as one of the surgeons that were going to work on the astronaut training program. So he said, how about Florida? So we moved to Cape Canaveral, and I spent the first couple of years of my life living on Cape Canaveral. And then about 2 years into his service, he was supposed to serve for 4 years. They were like, well, good news, the war's over, so you can go if you want, or we'll send you to our next base in Oklahoma. And he was like, so we're Jewish? And I don't know if there are any Jews in Oklahoma. And my mom was like, no fucking way. So he put on his uniform. He got in his car. He drove 2 hours south to Miami. He didn't have a suit, but he put on his uniform and he interviewed with some other surgeons, and he became part of a surgical practice. And that's how we ended up in Miami.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
random. We spend all this time in our lives making like plans. Like, what am I going to do and how is it going to be? And then like life throws you a monkey wrench and you're like, okay, I guess I'll go that way now.
You're like, okay, there's no Jews in Oklahoma, so I got to make another choice.
There's probably a lot of Jews in Oklahoma, but like when you spent your entire life in like a 10 square block radius in Brooklyn, and then you end up at Cape Canaveral in Florida, you're like, I don't think there's any Jews anywhere else. Turns out there's Jews everywhere, but yeah.
Turns out, yeah. You just would have had to go. You would have had to go fishing for them, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's amazing. So that is really special. What a career that your father stacked up. Now, do you have any siblings? Are you an only child?
I have one older sister who's 16 months older than I am, but I also have a cousin who moved into our house when she was in 10th grade. So she's 4 years older than I am. So I kind of have like 2 sisters, even though one's a cousin.
Okay. Incredible. Now, growing up with a father who is actually successful and stereotypically successful, right? When we think about it, it's like, well, go be a doctor, right?
Yeah.
So
a nice Jewish doctor.
A nice Jewish doctor.
Right.
Exactly. So sometimes it puts a lot of pressure on individuals. Did you feel any pressure of what success was supposed to look like for you? Is that something that was ever passed on to you? Or were you kind of always like, whatever, we're at Cape Canaveral, working to the astronauts, who cares? Right. Like you talked about being drunk and high in high school and stuff like that.
There wasn't a lot of whatever in my childhood. Definitely not. I mean, my book Limitless is basically based on the whole premise that at some point when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, somebody's like, hey, James, pick a major, pick a college, pick a trade, pick a path. And you go, okay. And then you like set your entire life plan. And the thing is, do you know what you don't have when you're 15, 16, 17 years old? You don't have a life experience, but you don't have a frontal lobe. Like literally, like the part of your brain that helps you dictate good, solid, logical decisions is not developed in your brain. Like we are asked to make the most important decisions of our lives when we literally do not have the capacity to make a good one. So what do? We look around and we're like, well, this is what my mom thinks is success. And this is what my dad thinks is success. And this is what's working for my older sister. Or this is what my teachers are saying. Or this is what, back then it was like Susan Day on LA Law. She seems successful. I'll be a lawyer, right? Hey, kids, that's your version of saying Kim Kardashian seems successful. I'll make a sex tape, right? Like, it's like we have these images of what success looks like that come from the outside world. And we have to make decisions to do something with them before we know ourselves. Like, forget life experience, forget world experience. Like, we don't even know ourselves at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so we make these decisions and we go off to like fill everybody else's check boxes on everybody else's list of what success is going to look like. And then we look around one day and we're like, okay, so I'm successful, quote unquote, as you said, like stereotypically successful, but I'm not happy. Yeah. So what's wrong? There must be something wrong with me. It turns out there's not anything wrong with us. There's just something wrong with the definition of success that was handed to us by somebody else, because we never took the time to stop and say, is that the definition of success my definition of success? And it turns out most of the time it's not.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth, y'all? We're coming in with the truth bombs hot and heavy first here. And that is such a brilliant point, because you're right. We don't have that frontal lobe. And so we're over here just, looking at what other prescriptions of success other people have been handed. And so here we go. I guess I'll follow in the footsteps over here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I had no idea I wanted to be a marine biologist, right? So I got a Bachelor of Science in Marine Biology. There's not one fish around me right now, LGO. Okay. I use my degree to impress dates at aquariums. All right. So the thing is that, but it's fascinating though, because I wonder when we think about that, I think there are parts of our childhood where we experience pure joy, where we do things that truly make us happy, even though it's happiest in its most simplistic form. And so what I've also noticed, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, is that some people, when they're stuck later in life, need to go back to, well, what was that thing that brought me joy? Like I was told not to be an artist, and I'm supposed to be, but I was told not to be an artist. And so I went ahead and got my business administration degree or something like that. But yet there's a nugget in what brought you joy earlier. So though we haven't exactly formed it, we still know what happiness is. But we shove that aside because of what we believe society or parents or guardians are telling us to do. But do you believe that, like, kind of at that later age, that sometimes it's healthy to go back to that thing of like, well, what made me smile when I wasn't even thinking about it when I was younger?
I've thought a lot about that, actually, because it's such a good question. I think there are a lot of people who are like, what I love to do is I love drawing. I love being an artist. I love dancing. I love music. And they're usually creative pursuits, where people have said things like, well, you can't make money at that, so you might as well do something else. And that'll just be your hobby, right? Yeah. So we learn really early on that the things that cause us joy, that are creative and are fun, are less important and are less valuable than the things that earn us money. So I spent some time thinking about that, because I was like, well, I don't know, maybe we should all like go find our inner child again and like go do those things. But the truth is, I've also, like, I just turned 50 and I'm kind of a princess. And like, if I spend my time like dancing and drawing and doing needlepoint and things that caused me joy as a child, that's not going to get me 800 thread count sheets at the Four Seasons, right? So like,
Sure.
I think it's a matter of thinking about like, what do you really want your life to look like? So we spend a lot of time thinking like, what do I want my career to look like? And what do I want, if I make bigger, better, faster, more, like more money, the bigger title, the bigger, job, the corner office, all that, I'll finally be happy. And I think, I had a business coach. I had breakfast with him at a diner, actually. And he said, look, what do you want your life to look like in 5 years? And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I want to have a successful business and a successful family. And I want to, and he's like, yeah, but what does that mean? Like, what does success mean? How many vacations do you want to go on? And when you go on those vacations, do you want to fly first class, or you want to, drive your car? Do you want to stay at the Four Seasons, or do you want to like stay at the Ramada Inn? No shade to the Ramada Inn, but like what do you want it to look like? Do you want to be somebody who's philanthropic, who can give money to causes and candidates that you care about? Are you somebody who, like, do you value having dinner every night with your family, or do you want to be on the road all the time? Like, what do you, like, really nitty gritty? what would make you feel happy in your life?
Mm.
And I had a really hard time thinking about it because I was so busy my whole life trying to go to like the traditional definitions of success that for me to say things like, yeah, actually, I love traveling and I want to travel a ton, but I also want to make enough money so that when I travel, I can come home to a house that somebody else cleans for me, because I don't want to have to come home at the end of the day on a Saturday, Sunday and be super stressed and have to like clean my toilet and do all that stuff. Like, I want to own it. Like, I'm a princess at this point in my life, but I also don't want to maximize every dollar I can from my work. I want to have the flexibility to say no to certain clients so that I can be home and see my kids, you know, at 6:00 and have dinner with them. And that changed like every 7 to 10 years or so, that what that equation looked like kind of changed. And it may just be that I wasn't like a super creative kid, that like my thought of, well, what caused me joy as a child wasn't something that seemed like, I don't know, like a fantasy dream world. I think if you're somebody who was creative, you might have much more of like a prison cell around you with what you're doing. But I wasn't a like happy-go-lucky, loose, creative kid. I was the kid who was like watching the news every night and like being righteously indignant about like the Iranian hostage crisis situation and things like that. I mean, I'm a weirdo. So like,
sounds like you made a lot of friends.
Well, I mean, what caused me joy, like what brought me joy then was being super active about stuff that I saw as wrong in the world and wanted to make right. So this business coach said something to me which was really smart. Like, first he asked me like, how do you pay yourself? And I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I bring money in for my clients and I pay my team of staff members and contractors. And then I, put some money into like upgrading our database and our website and stuff like that. And I put a little money away for a rainy day. And then I guess I pay myself whatever's left over. And he was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I think his exact words were, stop thinking like such a girl, which, what? Okay. But he wasn't wrong. I was definitely like apologizing for being there, like a lot of female entrepreneurs do. And he said, you need to figure out what you want your life to look like in 5 years. How many times do you want to go on vacation? What kind of car do you want to drive? What do you want? Do you want to clean your house? Do you want someone else to clean your house? What do you want your life to look like? Figure out what that life costs and then build a business that throws off that amount of money. And it was like basically the polar opposite of what I'd been doing up until that point. And it was a sea change moment for me because it made me realize that I wasn't just like going into the office every day to do the work and take whatever's left over. I was actually building towards something. And that something was only defined by me. So I don't know. I mean, like, look, you're doing the same kind of work. You're an entrepreneur. You're like out there on your own. How do you pay yourself? Like, do you have a logic around how you do it?
I'm just wildly rich. So, everything's fine. Oh God, no. Oh, I just got hit in the face with money.
You're like 800 thread counts, 1,500 thread counts, please.
Plebeian.
I know, I'm a commoner. It's true. It's terrible.
How do I pay myself? So my wife is also a professional speaker. That's what we both do. And she talks to women about why women need women. And I talk about authenticity and vulnerability and leadership. And so we recently, upon getting married, decided to merge our two LLCs into one, and we have our own business. And so I would say that we are approaching things somewhat similarly to the way that you currently are as well, or the way that, when you spoke with your business coach at that time, where it's kind of like, we take care of our employees and contractors and let's make sure that they're fed and totally fine. And then the next move is to like make sure that we're good with daycare and some of those other expenses. And then, whatever money we have left over, we try to do fun things. But I would also say that, we've set a goal to go and live somewhere else on this earth for a month every other year. And so that's something that we build towards. And that's something that we're like, well, that's unacceptable if we can't do that. So we need to build that in. And so I think that's something that we do fairly well, where we kind of build in something that matters to us. But yeah, I don't necessarily know if we've taken that approach of like, find the number that you need to live the life you want to live, and then just adapt your business to actually get there.
Well, it was a truly fascinating exercise because at the time he asked me, I had 15 staff members and we were growing at like a few staff members a year. And it was like, we just kept doing more. It was like more clients. I was running an executive search company. So it was more clients, more searches, more travel, more staff. And one day I looked at my numbers and I was like, okay, well, we're making more money, but we're not making so much more money that it's worth the increase in stress that comes with it, right? Because at the end of the day, if you have 5 staff members, you have 5 headaches if things go wrong. If you have 15 staff members, you have 15 headaches if things go wrong. If you have 40 staff members, it's 40 headaches. But are you making enough money to make the 15 headaches worth more than the 5? And on top of that, are you actually making more profit, right? Because you have to have a larger business, you have to have more, overhead, you have to have like more levels, you have to have like more stuff, more support going on. And so it made me stop and think like, well, okay, what do I want to take home? And what size of business, how many team members is actually the right size to throw off that amount of money and be worth it for what I'm doing. And it was funny because it sort of happened at the same time as we had a retreat, and we brought the firm was fully virtual. We were actually all remote before it was like COVID cool to be remote. So we were fully virtual right. I started the company in 2002 and we never had office spaces. So we had people literally all over the world. Yeah. And we brought everybody together once a year for a retreat. And we had this one woman who was from Harvard Business School. She facilitated the retreat, and she went around at the very beginning of the first day. And she's like, okay, I want everyone to go around and tell us, what do you think is the ideal number of staff for this company? And people were like 15, 20, 50, 4. They were pulling numbers out of their ass. And she came to me last, and I was like, that's a really stupid question. What kind of business do we want to build? What kind of impact do we want to make in the world? What kind of lifestyle do we want to have? And if you tell me that, I'll tell you how many people we need, because we could be far more profitable with 5 people or 60 people than we are with 20. But with 20, we're less profitable, but we all have more flexibility in our lives, right? So what are we maximizing for? Are we maximizing for impact? Are we maximizing for profit? Are we maximizing for personal freedom and flexibility? Because I'll give you 2 of the 3, but we have to make decisions based on something. And making a decision based on like how much business comes in the door and let's staff for that actually might build a business that's making less money and is keeping us busier than what we really want to do. So the whole exercise of figuring out what kind of life you want. And I'm not saying like how much money do you want to have in the bank, but I'm saying like how often do you want to hang out with your kids? How many, do you want to take a month and live somewhere else every year? You want to take 2 months and live somewhere else every year? And when you do that, where are you living? Right. So that exercise, I felt like for the very first time pulled me away from filling in everybody else's definition of success and actually stopping and saying, well, what do I want? What does my husband want? What do we want as a family? How do we want to do this? And it really opened up some pretty good conversations in our house, in my business. And it really it radically changed how we thought about what we were building and how we were building it. And as a result, actually the business grew like 100% every year for like the next 5 years.
That's incredible.
It's
got
crazy.
that hockey stick. Yeah, that's incredible. It's interesting, Laura. My wife and I have had a conversation recently because we set a goal for our business of an income goal this year, and we hit it with contracted speeches by the beginning of August, which is really exciting. And so we then had this really beautiful problem to have, which is, so what now? Do we smash the gas and be like, let's see how far we can blow the wheels off of this goal and just, and hit it? Or do we no, we should be happy with the amount that we have hit and realize that that's an amount that we had already decided that we could live a really great life with. And so instead, let's make sure we take a vacation or even just not just block our calendar, right? What if we just didn't go anywhere or didn't do anything? Obviously we'd probably still do some work, but maybe we're not on the road, right? And maybe it's a time where we're not putting our 9-month-old on a plane, right? Or something like that. But there's a fascinating balance, especially, I don't necessarily know if it's a younger thing or an older thing. I don't know if it changes in life. I think it's more just an individual personality, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that. Is we're literally asking ourselves, what is enough?
Yeah. Well,
right?
What did you do? I want to know. What'd you do?
I've tiptoed around it, and I've come up with excuses to I was like, well, we should probably make more, right? Because like she's putting on a women's conference, and I'm like, well, hotel overhead, we should probably get some, and like, because there's part of me that's like, if we got the time, then let's go, because we love what we do, which is fortunate.
Yeah, and tomorrow is not promised.
Correct. But tomorrow's not promised, but at the same time, tomorrow's also not promised with a beautiful day that I can have with our son, right? And so that's where this fascinating balance. So I'm curious,
or you could say, like, our son's 9-month-old right now, and he knows us and he loves us, but it's going to be sure as hell a whole lot more fun taking off that beautiful day when he's 3. So I'd rather bank some of it now and really spend time with him when he's older.
Yeah. This is a fascinating idea that's clearly rattled around in my head. And I mean, who knows what the right thing is to do, but we're going to make the decision for us. But I think the concept of what is enough, in contrast to, I'm not saying it's in complete contrast to the concept of limitless, but I would be curious to hear your thoughts on that. Like when, the clients that you have the opportunity to work with, or even just thinking in your own life, how do you determine what enough is?
Well, just to back up a second to be clear, Limitless is not about getting everything all the time, more. Actually, there's one of the ideas behind Limitless is that your definition of success may not be more. Your definition of success may be this is enough. This is okay. So there are 4, like the book talks about the idea of consonance, which is not success for success's sake, not success looking for happiness, because that's all sort of ephemeral and fleeting. This idea of consonance, where you're in alignment, when you're in flow, like you said, you're doing the work you love, and it's made up of 4 parts. It's made up of calling, connection, contribution, and control. So calling is this gravitational force, this thing that gets you out of bed in the morning, a leader who inspires you, the business you want to build, a family you want to nurture, right? The cause that you want to serve, like something that is exciting to you. Connection is, can you see a direct connection between your daily work and that calling, right? Do you see that your work actually matters? Contribution is, how does this work contribute to your life? Does it allow you to manifest your values on a daily basis? Does it pay you enough to give you the life that you want? Does it give you the flexibility, give you the lifestyle that you're looking for? Does it contribute to you living the kind of life you want? And then the last piece is control. How much do you personally control? How much agency do you have about how much that work connects to your calling and how much it contributes to your life? So the contribution piece is interesting because we had over 5,000 people take an online quiz that we put up. And what we have found, surprisingly, to all the companies that are trying to throw more money at people to keep them happy, is that in fact only 55% of the leading age group that's in the Great Resignation right now, the 30 to 45-year-olds, only 55% of them want more contribution out of their work, but 62 to 65% of them want more inspiration, right? They want more calling. They want to know their work matters. They want that connection. They want to feel like they have some control. So it's interesting that this question of how much is enough, a lot of us are like, actually, I've already got enough, right? I've got enough, or I know what that number is and I can go for it. But this external pressure of bigger, better, faster, more, drive the right house, drive the right car, park it in the right house, wear exactly the right clothes, buy exactly the right designers, send your kids to the right dance classes and music classes and private schools and all those things. There are a lot of people who read Limitless and said, what I actually realized is I've got enough right now. I had one guy who read the book and he sent me a message on Instagram and he's like, I read your book and I finally quit my corporate job. My wife and I bought a farmhouse and we've always wanted to grow all of our own food and make our own energy. So we did. Awesome, right? Awesome. That's great. So if your calling is that you want to, cure cancer, great. That's great. Go for it. If your calling is that you want to make enough money so that you can make decisions, financial decisions that you never got to make growing up, and your kids can have more flexibility than you had growing up because you were in debt, that's awesome too. But if your calling is that you want to buy a Maserati and a beach house, that's cool too, right? So everybody's number of how much is enough is going to be just completely different. So I don't know, for me, how much is enough is that I don't have to look at the number in my bank account before I make decisions about things that cause me joy. And that's it. Sometimes
Yeah.
the things that cause me joy are going to a taco truck with my kids. And sometimes the things that cause me joy are, taking a first class flight and staying at 4-star hotels. Everybody's different and every part of your life is different. So I don't know. I don't know that I could answer that. Like, can you answer that? I'm not sure I can.
I mean, I think in a way you did, right? In a way you did answer it, because it truly is different for everybody. And ultimately what it comes down is you're the only person who has to fall asleep to the sound of your own heartbeat.
Yes.
And so you are the only person who knows what is enough.
Yes.
And who knows what external pressures you are allowing to redefine what your definition of success is, what your definition of happiness is, what your definition of enough is. And so I mean, what you said is beautiful for that reason. And I love your definition of success. One of my definitions of success is to be able to pay people to do the things I don't want to do, so I have more time to do the things I want to do. Right? You talked about getting the house clean. You talk about getting the lawn mowed. Talked about whatever it is. Right? And so like that's one of my definitions of success. Doesn't have to be somebody else's, but that's one of mine. And so, because there's some people that are like, well, I always want to mow my lawn. I want to know it's done right. That's amazing. That makes you joy.
Awesome.
I don't give a shit about it. Right. I got a buddy who sends me a picture of his lawn, and he's sending like pro tractors and everything. I'm like, good for you, bud.
Amazing.
Right? Just tell me when I'm supposed to put fertilizer down.
And amazing. I mean, I was talking to someone today, and she was telling me how like the thing that she hates most in the world is going to the grocery store. She just hates it with like every fiber in her being. And like, I like to like feel my produce, like I like to get all up in there.
You.
Yeah. I mean, I like the cantaloupes, baby. So, I, like for me, if I like set up like an Instacart or somebody does the grocery shopping for me and like they're like an important ingredient is missing, then all of a sudden I have like 78% of the meal that I want to cook. And then what am I going to do? Right. So like, I like a lot of control. That's just how I operate. So I think everybody is different. And I think the other thing that's important, James, is it's also different at different ages and different life stages. So like what mattered to me, you mentioned that I worked in the Clinton White House. I dropped out of law school to join the Clinton White House. And at that time, I didn't need any contribution. I was making like all the ramen soup and idealism you can eat, right? Like they weren't paying me anything, but I had calling out the wazoo. I was inspired. I was so inspired by this guy who talked about exchanging community service for college tuition. I was like, yes, that makes so much sense. I had no connection. I was getting the coffee for the guy who got the coffee for the guy who got the coffee. I mean, it was like zero. And I had no control. Like, are they going to send me to Little Rock one day or New York City the next day, Des Moines, Idaho, or Iowa? Like, who knows? But it didn't matter. That's all I needed at the time. Now, as I mentioned, I'm 50. I've got, 2 teenage kids. One's in college in Houston. And my speaker page on my website now is like, Laura charges between $20,000 and $25,000 for a speech, plus, airfare, blah, blah, blah. And then there's questions, typical questions. Does she do discounts? And it's like, yes, Laura has lots of charities that are important to her. So if it is one that makes sense for her, she'd be happy to talk to you about discounts. What if my event's in Houston, right? My kids at Rice in Houston. And it said, I don't remember the exact wording, but it says something like, if you've got airfare and money for dinner for 2 at a taco truck, I'm your girl, right? Like that matters to me now. So I would forego my fee if I have an opportunity to go to Houston and go have dinner with my son. So I think at every age and at every life stage, and I think those life stages probably are like every 7 to 10 years, they change, right? Like think about who you were 7 years ago, different than now. Now you have a 9-month-old, but in 7 years, that 9-month-old is going to be what, in second grade, third grade, taking the bus to school. Like your time is going to be very different than it is now. So what you do and what you need out of your work and how that piece of your life dovetails with the rest of your life will be different, and you'll want different things. But we have this one size, monolithic, lean in type of idea that it's like, you got to like rise and grind and hustle and all that stuff. And it's bullshit, like there's like, why is there one size fits all definitions of success? I reject that outright.
Yes. So I'm wondering, taking it back to your childhood, I have to bring it back up because I want to hear a little bit more about it, which is this idea that you were, that you were drunk and high in high school.
Yeah.
And so, at the same time, you had very strong and powerful beliefs. Like you said, you're watching the news, you're learning about what's going on in Iran. You're yelling "fuck the patriarchy" before it was on T-shirts, right? And so and all that kind of stuff. And so there was a part of you that is amazing how it's kind of carried in through a lot of your life. But I'm wondering, when you were that age, what mattered to you? What did you think you were going to be doing? What was the goal at that age?
Well, I graduated from high school thinking that I would be the first female Democratic senator from the great state of Florida. That was the plan.
Great.
So I applied for college, went to University of Texas, mostly because there were a lot of cute boys playing Frisbee without shirts on the day that we visited.
Sounds about right.
That's pretty much why I chose it. Yeah. And it was fine. It was great. I graduated early from college. So I graduated in the December class, so 3.5 years. And then I went right into law school, which started in January. And the January class at University of Florida, where I went, because I wasn't going to get into Harvard. So I was like, I want to run for office in Florida. I should go to the best law school in Florida. So I picked University of Florida. Mm-hmm. And the way that it works is you do the fall semester in the spring, and then you do the spring semester in the summer. So you're caught up to the next fall class. So I graduated from college on like December 17th and started law school on January 3rd. And I was, 20 years old at the time. And that's what I was going to do. I was all in. I was going to run for office. I was going to solve all the problems. I was going to, I was going to help. I was going to fix things. And then I spent the first few weeks in law school, and I was that kid. I was the one that got called on the very first day. Like I'm a lot older than you, but like the paper chase where they call on the student and they just ask question after question after question after question. In that, the Socratic method where they just like beat the student down. And I went 20 minutes or so answering questions until finally I didn't have any more knowledge. And I basically started crying. I mean, I was like, the teacher just tore me apart, made an example out of me. And I looked around at the rest of the students in the class, and I did not see one friendly face. I did not see one supportive person. And when I went to the library the next week to take out a book to read about a case that was going to be on the test coming up, I found the case was ripped out of the book. And I remember thinking, this is University of Florida. Like this isn't like Harvard, Yale, Princeton. What's going on here? And I was just so horrified. And I didn't want to be like the professors. I felt like they were inhumane. I didn't respect my fellow students who were they placed competition above knowledge. And I had this idea of sort of where it was going, and where it was going wasn't anywhere I wanted to be. So I did the thing that most people do when they're in a pretty bad situation in life. I dated a really horrible person. Like a total douchebag, like a horrible,
get
horrible
the gas
human
on
being.
The fire. Let's go.
I mean, so he was in my law school class, and I used to ride my bike to campus, and
it's a hot bike ride in Gainesville.
So I used to ride my bike to campus, and on that particular day it was raining, and so he said, well, I'll give you a ride home from class. We'll just put your bike in the back of my IROC Z, which will tell you everything you need to know about this guy. Vroom, right? Like the Def Leppard going, and animal. There we were, car in the back. He's like, but on the way, I want to stop at this guy's campaign office. He's running for president. I want to pick up some literature. Kids listening, this is how you used to do it before the internet, right? You'd have to stop at a physical office, and you'd have to actually get paper that had a candidate's campaign stances on it. There's no internet, the internet didn't exist. Or maybe it did, but it was just for defense contractors, but it didn't exist in the world. So we pull into this little teeny tiny strip mall in Gainesville, Florida. And the entire strip mall was about the size of the office you're sitting in right now. But in the corner, there was this tiny little black and white TV. And then Governor Bill Clinton, brown head of hair still, giving this impassioned talk at the National Governors Association about this idea of community service in exchange for college tuition. Make the world a better place while you're improving your life. And it was boom, right? A lightning bolt. I walked into that office Governor who, from where? Arkansas, not a chance in hell. George H.W. Bush had just won Desert Storm. He had a 91% approval rating. Everybody was like, oh, we'll just send a sacrificial lamb in for the Democratic ticket because clearly Bush is going to win again. And then Bill Clinton comes out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this idea and he talks about it. And I was like, yes, that makes so much sense. That needs to happen. And it was, I would say, I didn't realize at the time, I didn't realize it till like 20 years later, but looking back on it, that was the moment where my mindset went from how can I help to what needs to happen. Like the way you solve problems isn't asking people, how can I help? You ask them what needs to happen, and then you find the solution you can offer within what they need, as opposed to making it an ego play about like, how can I help? Tell me what I can do. Make me the center of attention. And that's actually what I ended up giving my TEDx talk about, which then launched the part of the career that I'm in right now. So yeah, like it's funny how we think everything that's happening right now is the new normal, but like, I think we have no idea that there are little bits of data that are being filed into our brain that will become lessons that will alchemize years from now. And we don't even realize it yet. We're just like gathering right now. We're gathering. You're planting all these seeds and you don't know what's going to come up. And it's like, maybe you're growing a pot plant, or maybe you're growing a rose garden, or maybe you're growing eggplants, or like, who the hell knows? But I think that's really interesting that we are living in a world right now where everyone's like, well, are you making money from your hobby? And are you maximizing this? And are you making everything as much as it can possibly count? The truth is sometimes you're just gathering seeds. Mm-hmm. So I gathered a lot of seeds, and yeah, so I thought I was going to run for office. I thought I was going to, graduate from law school, become a, district attorney, put away the bad guys, like make my reputation, get recruited to run for office, win, of course. Like in my fantasy, of course I was going to win.
Of course.
And yeah, I mean, like it was going to be a landslide, obviously. Who the hell knows, right? Like the odds of that are so slim. But in my fantasy imagination, that's what I thought was going to happen. And then I would, run for Congress, and I'd run for Senate, and I never, interestingly enough, never actually thought beyond that, because at the time, the only woman I'd ever seen to run for office that was higher than senator was Geraldine Ferraro for vice president. So like, I didn't think ladies could be president, I guess, when I was 12, creating this life plan for me. So yeah, we still have to work on that, by the way, but so that's a diner talk for another day.
I agree on both of those fronts, actually, that yes, we need to work on it. And yes, that is indeed a whole nother diner talk, but a worthwhile one.
Yes. So yeah, that's my,
another
that's my
hungry
story.
man breakfast. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I
Yes.
wrote a lot of plans in pen without realizing that I should have been writing them in pencil. And yeah.
But sometimes we need to write plans in pen because that's what gives us the courage to move.
Yes,
right? If
that's
we think
really
that we write
true.
if we write everything in pencil, then we're kind of like, well, I don't know, right? Like we kind of sit there.
Yes.
But at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, I love that you acknowledge this, the hustle culture, right? That no one's, where are we hustling to? Right? Like, it's not like we're running down the first baseline. We got a goal to get to. A lot of us are just like, I got to do everything. It's like, where do you want to go?
Right.
Where is this train that you're talking about? Like, yeah, it's
right. So you end up exhausted, but not fulfilled. Right.
Yes. 100%.
But I love that idea of like, you have to have sometimes you need to write your plans down in pen to give you the courage. I think it's like the difference between motivation and, discipline, or motivation and accountability. Like you and I live in a world of a lot of motivational speakers. I describe myself as a motivational, keynote speaker, but I think motivation's bullshit. I think it's nonsense. I really do, because to say when somebody's motivated, it means that every single day they wake up and have to remotivate themselves every single day. And I don't have that kind of fortitude. I just don't. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to run my 4th marathon on Monday, but I run charity marathons first because I'm old and slow. But second, because if I have all these people who have donated to me, I have to keep getting up and running because they're paying attention and they're watching. And like, I'll break a promise to myself every single day of the week. I'm like, I'm 100%. Tired, my foot hurts, I don't know. But I won't break a promise to somebody else ever. Right. So like, I don't like, motivation doesn't work for me, but like accountability is everything. I don't know. Like, what do you think about that? Because, you and I live in the same space here.
Yeah, for sure. I think motivation plants the seed, but after that, sometimes our business is a little lonely, right? Because we're not there to, we'll get some water on it and get some sun, right? That's accountability. Yeah. Accountability is that next piece. But motivation, I think motivation, if done right, puts the seed in some good soil. and it gives it the opportunity. But still,
Yeah,
that's
fair.
it. But that's it, right? And so I think it matters, but it's not I mean, to discount our work even further, it's the easy part of the job.
Yeah,
Right.
I feel
And
like
so, yeah.
motivation, like I think motivation is very good for inspiring people to create dreams that are truly worthy of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I think it helps people to dream bigger, to see what's possible, to think that there could be more for them.
Yeah.
But to actually get there, they need discipline and accountability.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. I mean, the cheesy way that I put it is that as a professional speaker, I make people pause.
Mm.
And just pause for a second, right? Because if you never pause, then you're on the hamster wheel, right? But what if you stopped and looked around and be like, do I want to be here? Right. But like we have to, it's easier to turn a ship if it is stopped than if it's in motion. And so if we can get people to stop or slow down for a second and look around and be like, oh, maybe my language is impacting other people in a way that I didn't realize it. Maybe I am prescribing to a hustle culture that's not helping me. Maybe I am enough. Whatever, like those kinds of things. Like that's the way, the cheesy way that I've come up to talk about it. But I agree with you. And I think that's why I love coaching. I'm assuming it's one of the reasons why you love coaching as well, is because that's where it swings in and you actually get to be a part of that process of change. You get individuals to realize, what kind of water do you want? What kind of sunlight do you want? And actually get things to change. But that is, that's how I normally typically think about it. And I'm wondering for you, as we kind of talk a little bit about coaching, have you noticed certain patterns that a lot of your clients are in? And are they in repeat patterns where you're kind of like, okay, person who is CEO of whatever health insurance company, and now I got a CEO of a hedge fund, I got a CFO of a blank, but they're completely different entities, but yet the same patterns emerged. Have you noticed a lot of patterns with the high performing clients you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I have noticed that let's see, a handful. I've noticed that they are generally very good at driving performance in their businesses, and they are not very good at driving performance at home. Right. So they know how to be the CEO at work, and either they come home as the CEO, which doesn't work in their house, or they come home and they just don't know what to do because they don't have any power. Yeah. So trying to figure out how to like meld their two selves together is something. So like they want to have as fulfilling as a home life as the success. Like I find a lot of, especially male CEOs, find themselves burying themselves into work because that's the place where they feel like they have power, they have control. They get the recognition, right? Like all of that. Some women also, but like that tends to be more of a male CEO problem that I see with some of my clients. For the women, obviously, there's a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of, lack of confidence and concern about like how they're coming off and are they too powerful? Are they not powerful enough? Like how do they walk that balance? For both, and again, men have that also, right? But like that's, if I were to gender it, that's sort of where I see a lot of that. For both, I would say one of the things that I see is just an inability to stop getting pulled into the noise. Just getting pulled into like, they're trying to do deep work and they're trying to focus, but they're also like still solving like little problems that are distracting to them and are irrelevant. And so teaching them to create boundaries and to let their people fly and sometimes fail a little, right? And figuring out when the right time is to do that. I think I see that with both. And then I'd say the fourth thing that I see is sort of the correct titration of their executive presence. So when do they come on strong? When do they try to be softer? When do they become the helper? When do they become the cheerleader? Just sort of figuring out how to bring the spotlight to others sometimes and when to keep it for themselves, but sort of the whole big bucket of executive presence.
Yeah.
I'd say those are probably the four biggest themes that I'm seeing right now.
First off, shout out to you, Laura, for busting out the word titration. I haven't heard that since my organic chemistry class sophomore year of college.
I use that word all the time, almost every day.
Word.
I love that word.
It's a strong word choice. You brought up this powerful word, which is control. And control is fascinating. I know for me, I actually never drank. We grew up a little different. I never drank a drop of alcohol until I was in really my early 30s, right? And like the first 5 drinks that I had were best man speeches that I gave at weddings, and I was like, I think I'm supposed to drink this, otherwise it's bad luck, right? Like, and so it's not like it turned me into a lush. It was like, oh, I'm supposed to do this, or I don't want to look weird, or like throw it over my shoulder or probably hit them in the eye. But still, right? And so, but there are a number of reasons historically why I didn't do that. Alcoholism does run in my family, and there is a gene for it. And yes. So I was like, I don't know if I have it or not. I'm not trying to find out.
If I had alcoholism in my family, I drink milk at parties. I would that sounds like a very healthy decision.
Yeah. And there's other reasons, right? I told myself I like being the person that anybody can call if they needed anything, right? So I did a lot of DD work, and I loved it because A, I knew my friends were okay. B, I used to get to drive their nicer cars than mine. Nice. And so now, but ultimately, as I did more self-work, a lot of it came down to control. And just wanting to be in control. Control is a fascinating word. And what is your relationship with the word control? Because you brought it up here a little bit earlier as well, that you're someone who likes things the way you like things, and you want it to, you want A to B to C, and that's you enjoy when that happens.
Yeah, I have no small amount of control freakiness in me. I like to sit in the aisle seat of every airplane. Not because I think not because I think I'm gonna survive like the fiery ball of death that is a crash, but I just like the illusion of control. Like I'm such a control freak. I need the illusion of control. We have a very specific organization system in our kitchen, and a very specific organization system in our refrigerator. Like there's like the upper quartile is like where left quartile is where the leftovers go. The upper right quartile is where we have like the pre-cut, berries and veggies. Like the bottom is where it's like it is a whole system.
What age did your children learn the word quartile?
Probably right after they learned the word titrate.
Perfect.
So yeah, I gave a speech once, and a woman came up to me afterwards. She's like, "You use a lot of big words, but I like it."
Oh yeah, I am here for it. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I am such a control freak that I even like the precision of language, right? Like I like there are so many words in the English language that there is one that is right for a moment, and there are a lot that are almost right for that moment. And there's something about the emotion that comes out of somebody when they hear exactly the word that is describing their feeling. It's like they feel seen for the very first time, and it is a beautiful, beautiful moment. So yeah, I am a control freak. I own that. It is. I think it's okay because I don't let my control freakiness make other people crazy, but I also understand how to communicate about it, so their lack of it doesn't make me crazy.
Okay. That's good. That's good self-awareness. Yeah. I love that. So control is a fascinating word. And I love that you talked about it, that you often notice that pattern within men that you work with. And that you notice in women that women are battling more of the imposter syndrome. Am I enough kind of things? Am I the right person for the job, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's this little thing out there. I think you've heard of it. It's called privilege. And so it's fascinating to hear about men who are control freaks and who want everything to be a specific way. And then we also talk about privilege, because ultimately, sometimes what happens is that a woman will speak up, or a woman identifying individual will speak up, and they will be saying something in an assertive way, but because of the control freak nature of a male, they have become uncomfortable by it. Mm-hmm. And whenever someone becomes uncomfortable, they want to try to change or modify another person's behavior, because it's easier to point out something from someone else as opposed to recognize, why am I uncomfortable in this moment right now? And so privilege is fascinating, because privilege is just the ability to not have to worry about things when you're in certain situations. Mm-hmm. And so So as you work with men with some of these controlling behaviors, do you find yourself ever talking about privilege? Because I know you are someone who also is very passionate about social justice as well. And I'm wondering if that comes up in any of those conversations, even though that's not at all what they hired you for. But as you mentioned, they bring it home. And not to stereotype that these people are all in heterosexual relationships, but still, I think you see the direction I'm going in here.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we should preface this by saying that the people that I'm coaching have researched me and referenced me and chosen to hire me after seeing me online, hearing what I talk about, understanding my social justice bent, understanding the fact that I'm going to call it like I see it. So it may be that the way that I do it is brilliant, but I'm thinking it's more likely that the clients I have self-selected, that they're willing to hear what I have to say, and that they're ready for that. So it's hard for me to make a comment about like Gen Pop, because I would imagine that there are a lot of male identifying or even female identifying and everything else who think that I'm, obnoxious and I scold people in all sorts of, terms. I have a dear friend who said to me just the other day, is like, I love you as a human and I love texting with you all day long and I love you in person. He goes, but I have a hard time being friends with you on social media. You scolded me the other day about International Women's Day, that like not enough men were, posting and doing enough. And he's like, you have no idea what I was doing behind the scenes. And I was like, why do you feel the need to be congratulated for what you were doing? Like the fact that I was pointing out that not enough men are working hard to open up enough doors for enough women had nothing to do with you. But the fact that you decided to make it about you, and the fact that I wasn't praising you in my posts, like upset you in some way, I think that's a you issue, actually. And I think you need to think about that.
Hashtag not all men, right? That whole issue.
Well, it was
the Me Too movement.
It was specifically for that day, that not all men. And I posted something where I was like, well, not all men, do all these things, but not all men also are like, your silence, like I'm not going to go as far as say silence is complicity about everything, but your silence is certainly not helpful. And I think that I think people are so worried about pissing somebody off. Like the other day I posted about this young van life woman, Gabby Petito, who disappeared. And this was before she was found dead, but when she disappeared, and I posted something like, as outraged as I am about her disappearance, I'm even more outraged that the only reason every single one of us know her name is because she's beautiful, she's blonde, she's white, she's blue-eyed, she's skinny, and she, yes. That to me is even more offensive, right? Like I'm horrified by all of it, and not to, take anything away from the tragedy that was her death, but I was like, the bigger tragedy is that there are thousands of people who disappear every week, whose names we don't know because they're Black, because they're trans, because they're overweight, because they're gay, because they're old, because they're whatever, and they don't fit into this, idea. And as soon as I posted it, as soon as I tweeted about it, another fellow speaker in our world texted me and he said, oh, you're going to lose some business for being so controversial. And I thought about it and I almost took it down. And then I went to Facebook and I posted a picture of my tweet and I was like, I was just told that I'm going to lose business. And you know what? I might. And that's just going to have to be okay.
Yeah.
Because I have all of this privilege. And if I don't use it to call attention for people who do not have it, then I'm an asshole. Like plain and simple. Like that's it. I'm not saying that everybody has to get on their high horse and preach about things that they care about, but I have enough privilege that I could lose some business and be just fine. If you're not somebody who could lose some business and be just fine, then play it safe. Yep. But for me, I don't know that I could go to bed at night knowing that I prioritized my own personal profits when I already have enough, right? We're talking about how much is enough. I guess how much is enough is I can lose some and be just fine. Maybe that's enough to bring this back to what we were talking about before.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I remember I had an uncle who pulled me aside and was just like, hey, James, I think you need to be a little more You need to scrutinize, what you post a little bit more, just because, you're building a business, you're building a
Yeah.
thing. And I was like, listen, if you ain't down to get down, then I don't need your money. Right.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Right. Like if my Black Lives Matter behind me, if that offends you, then
Right.
then my guests are going to piss you off. So.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, 100%. And so, and that's why, but it's interesting also in that vein is that social justice is a part of every speech that I give, but I don't advertise that.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit of give them what they want, tell them what they need.
I mean, for me, they look at my bio and they're like, she's clearly a political person. So like, they know what they're getting. Like the NRA is never going to have me go speak at their annual conference. Right. Like it's,
yeah.
And that's okay. I
bet they pay well. I bet they pay well.
I bet they do pay well.
Disappointingly well. Where does that money come from? Anyway, so I also think that it is, we would be remiss not to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, because you mentioned that it is something that comes up with a lot of your coaching clients. And it is something that affects so many individuals who don't believe that they have whatever magic they're supposed to have to be in the rooms that they occupy. And that's a lie, right? We know that from individuals. Just because you don't bring everything into the room doesn't mean you don't bring anything. And so when it comes to imposter syndrome, how do we rewrite that story? What are some ways that you try to help individuals rewrite that lie that they're telling themselves?
Well, so I tell them that it's not a lie. It's not a lie that you don't have everything you need to be in that room. You don't have everything you need to be in the room. Right. But the actual truth is, neither does anybody else. Everybody else is making it up as they go along too. Like there is no, and I spent 20 years doing executive search for the biggest organizations in the world, like finding CEOs for the biggest organizations in the world. And the big giant secret is that nobody walks on water. There are no perfect candidates, right? So nobody has everything you need to walk in the room. Now, women will only apply for jobs if they are competent, if they've already done it, if they've already walked the walk, if they already can prove that they can do the job because they've already done the job. Men will often apply for jobs because they're confident. They see what's there, they see what is possible, and they're like, yeah, I could probably do that. So when you're already starting with like, I need to be competent before I walk in the door, and then you have other people who are like, I'm confident enough to be here, I'll figure it out when I get here. You're already feeling behind. Then there's this pluralistic imposter syndrome that we have, where like, if I'm in the room and I'm overcompensating by being super confident, then you're like, oh, well, she's so confident, I must not belong here. So you then try to like make up for being an imposter by being even more confident. I'm like, oh God, James is so confident, I should be really confident. So neither one of us are telling us the other one has no idea what they're doing. And we have this pluralistic imposter syndrome. But here's the thing. And there's this great article by two women whose names I can't remember off the top of my head right now. They wrote it in Harvard Business Review. And the point of the article was all of the systems in the world, and we're talking about social justice issues here, all the systems in the world were created by wealthy white men, wealthy, straight, cisgender white men. Right. So if you walk in the room and nobody looks like you, if you walk in the room and it's not created for your voice, for your cadence, for your personality, it's because that system wasn't created for someone who looks like you, who sounds like you, who thinks like you, who loves like you, who prays like you. That doesn't make you an imposter. It makes the system crap. Like we have to fix the systems. And so this article, which is fantastic, and I'll send it to you after if you want to link to it, it basically says, you are not an imposter. You've just reached a point that nobody ever expected you to be, which is kind of amazing, right? Like it tells you, like every time I feel imposter syndrome, like, I don't know if I belong here, I think to myself, hell yeah, LGO, you're in a room that you never thought you'd be in. Like you've just leveled up to the next level. And every time you get to the next level, and Seth Godin talks about this also, he's like, everybody who's clinging on to the top rung has never been there before. And they're all looking around, hoping nobody else figures them out. None of us have been. So every time you achieve something else, I mean, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, like all these people that were like, oh my God, the cult of billionaires, they're amazing. Well, every time they earn more money, they're like, I've never had this much money before. What am I going to do? Like every single one of us, every time we strive and we grow and we innovate and we iterate and we change, are somewhere we've never been before. And so I think what we need to do is we need to not try to quiet that voice. That's the voice that's saying, you might embarrass yourself, you might fail, you might totally screw up. And if we let that voice, instead of being the critic, the governor that stops us from moving faster and moving forward, and allow it to be our cheerleader that's like, you might fail, but amazing. You might learn something. You've never been here before. This is so cool. Like, this is something you never thought would happen. Awesome. Good for you for getting here. Then all of a sudden you have a cheering section. And that's way better than having a governor or having like the critics. So I think you can't silence the voice. The voice has evolutionarily been put in you to stop you from doing something stupid. So if we let the voice talk and say, you might fail, and go, cool, that's awesome. I've survived failure before. I've survived all of my failures up until this point. I bet I could survive this one too. And all those failures, P.S., have taught me something that have landed me at a different or a better or a more interesting place. And that'll happen this time too. Then suddenly we're not trying to quiet the voice. We're actually using it as momentum and energy and power. So yeah, that's my thinking about imposter syndrome. I actually welcome it. I think it's awesome. I think it tells you that you've, gotten somewhere.
Yeah. What a powerful switch flip or script flip of like, no, this is a good thing. This is telling you that you've never been here before. This is incredible. Look around. This is special. You made it.
And you're special for making it.
Yeah. But you said a word that people have a lot of interesting relationships with. And I want to bring it back to you. We've been talking about other people, but I want to try to bring it back to you with this question. Now, you talked about confidence. And confidence is it's an interesting word, right? It's beautiful. I love the idea of it. Don't always have it, right? I would say my relationship with confidence, I would describe as inconsistent or complicated, right? I once heard someone say that they're in a long distance relationship with the word confidence. And so my wife told me that story. It was great. But I'm wondering, as I listen to you speak, the way that you carry yourself on social media, obviously you have this resume that to anybody who just looks at it, they're like, holy shit, right? You're hanging out with the Clintons. We're selling startups. We're doing some amazing things, opening up Montessori schools. It's incredible. And the way that you are articulate, it spews confidence. And that's the way that my perception of you is. I'm wondering, what is your perception of yourself and your relationship with the word confidence?
Yeah. So when I was 13 years old, I went to computer sleepaway camp, like for real. Like it was a sleepaway camp where you program computers. It was an Atari computer sleepaway camp, because that's just how old I am. Incredible. And we learned how to program BASIC and COBOL and a little bit of Fortran, baby. So I was one of 3 girls in the entire camp, and still didn't kiss a boy till I went to college. And I'm still that girl. I'm still that total computer nerd girl who is a raging introvert who walks into a party and cannot wait to leave. I wear very, nice designer clothes on stage as body armor. And it is crazy that I'm in this job that I'm in. I'd much rather have an hour-long diner talk with somebody than work a room. That just makes me want to hurl. So yeah, I think it's interesting. My relationship with confidence is that I think I like that. I have a long distance relationship with confidence. I feel like mine is it's complicated. There are some things in which I'm very confident. Absolutely. And a lot of that has come, interestingly enough, in my 40s. I call them the fuck you 40s. This is pretty much who I am at this point. I'm I might get a little better on that 10%. I might get a little worse on that 10%, but basically it's I'm pretty much me at this. I'm 50 now, right? You don't like me? Fuck you, right? I'm sure there are things I can do better. I'm sure there are things I can do worse, but I'm done trying to shoehorn myself into everybody else's idea of what is the right pant size or the right volume of my voice or the right social media posts or any of that. I don't want I don't want millions of fans. I want like an army of 1,000 who love me, and that's all I need. That's all I need to make the world a better place. So I'm not confident in everything I do, but I do, to go back to the confidence thing. We've mentioned the marathon a couple of times. I ran my first mile of my life right before I turned 39. My life. I'd never been athletic, never ever any. I had 7,000 excuses to get out of PE when I was in school. My PE teacher's like, "How do you have your period every week?" I was just like, "Sorry, got it again. Guess I get, play Foursquare." And but I ran my first mile. At the end of the mile, I said, "Oh my God." It took me 6 weeks to run the mile without needing to lean over and puke, literally. And at the end of the mile, I was like, well, if I string 3 of those together, I could run a 5K. So I signed up for a 5K, and 6 weeks later I did a 5K. And I say did, not run, because men in double jogger strollers were passing me on the uphills. If I could have stuck my arm out and clotheslined them, I would have, but I didn't see them coming, so I was so busy trying not to die. So I did a 5K. At the end of the 5K, I was like, what if I string 2 of those together? I could do a 10K. So a couple months later, I did a 10K, and then I was all hopped up on endorphins. So I was like, if I string 2 of those together plus another mile, I could do a half marathon. So I started training for a half marathon. And as you mentioned, I live in Boston, marathon town. Yeah. So one thing led to another. And the next thing you know, I'm training for the Boston Marathon. Now, if I had woken up the first day of that boot camp where I went to do exercise and try to run that 1 mile, I never would have said, I'm confident I'm going to run a marathon. But because I showed myself over and over the competence that I could do the step before the step I wanted, it gave me the confidence to say, I can do the next thing. The women who are applying for jobs who are I'm not competent enough for it. I haven't done it yet. If they've done the step before, they could do the thing the guy's saying, go, well, I can string all these things together, and 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. So I have confidence that I could get to 3 because I've done 1 and 1 and 1. So my relationship to confidence is that I don't trade in confidence that much. I really work on competence, not of the thing that I want to do, but of the steps that lead up to the thing that I want to do. And I trust, every Olympic gold medalist will tell you, get out there, their very first Olympic race. And they're like, what are you thinking about? They're like, nothing. I just trust the process. You trust the training, you trust the process. And I think if you can be competent in the process, then you can be confident in the goal.
And in the moment. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can enjoy the ride, right? I have this marathon on Monday. I have to run 26.2 miles. I've only run 20 miles in training. You don't run 26.2 miles in marathon training. You run 20.
Right.
When you run a 13.1 half marathon, you run 10 miles in training. You never run 13.1. But on Marathon Monday, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get to 20 miles and I'm going to be like, I wonder what happens now. Am I going to make it? Is it going to happen? I don't really know. I haven't done this before. And I always say, there's the angel and the devil on your shoulders. And one's like, you're going to die. This is the worst thing you've ever done. What are you thinking? And the other one's like, you're going to do it. You're going to be a marathoner. It's amazing. And you have to make that choice. Only one of those voices gets to win. And you have to make that choice. So which one wins? Right? That just comes down to do you have accountability? Do you have discipline? What was the motivation to get going in the first place? So I don't know. I think having I think confidence is a really terrible goal, because you can never have confidence, because then you're not continuing to grow and striving and putting that next weird, crazy, kooky, maybe it's the big promotion, maybe it's the farmhouse where you build your own energy and grow your own food. You're not evolving if you're not scared a little bit about the goal that's in front of you. But how could you be confident about a goal you've never achieved? You can be confident about your training and about the process and feel good about that. But yeah, I don't know. I think confidence, it's what I tell my executive coaching clients. I'm like, I'm not going to make you confident. I'm not going to give you confidence that, that you're going to be just fine. I'm going to help you trust that you're doing the things you need to do, so that you believe in yourself and that you know that you'll be just fine.
I'm chewing on this.
Yeah.
I love this. Confidence is not the goal.
Yeah.
That is counterintuitive to what I believe we are taught, to what social media tells us and all
Sure.
that kind of stuff, right? But counterintuitive in such a beautiful way. Because in some ways it makes confidence seem more attainable. Because since it's not the goal, then I can just be okay with the moments that I am confident, right? For example, when I'm on stage, right? People come up to me like, James, how are you so confident? I'm like, you just literally saw me at my most confident. You just witnessed the peak of me feeling good about myself.
Yeah.
And
now I'm going to go back to my hotel room, climb into the bed in fetal position and think about the 3 words I said wrong.
Yes, exactly.
and shake myself to sleep, basically. Like that's what the other side of this looks like.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And so, yes, what you shared about it is incredibly powerful. And I like that idea of, get yourself competent so that you can achieve confidence if confidence is something that you're interested in. But,
right,
but the
really
competence
important,
is never there.
You don't have to be competent in the thing you want to do because you haven't done it yet.
Right.
So like waiting to be competent, like I think we're not confident because we're waiting to be competent. And I think we have to just be competent in the training. We have to be competent in what's leading up to it. Right. So like, I don't know how Monday is going to go, but I know this week I can be competent in eating cleanly, in resting, in hydration, all the things that I need to do so that I wake up on Marathon Monday and I'm like, it's going to go as well as it can go.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. But I think people who are confident just because they're confident, the emperor has no clothes. Like a lot of those people are just blowhards, right? They're just,
100%.
we assign confidence to the loudest person in the room.
Yes.
When really they're probably the most insecure. It's the ones who are the quietest who often are the most confident. So I think we have confidence. We've gotten it so wrong. And so I just, rather than helping people get it right, I just want to take it off the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm there with you on that one. I'm there with you for sure on that idea. And it is fascinating to see the way that, like you said, like the loudest person in the room is just that. They are the loudest person in the room. They are nothing more than that. But how we assign who must be the most confident is fascinating. And something that also isn't doing those people any level of service either. Right. And so what if we all just dropped our shoulders and we're like, you know what, let's just show up. But that's way easier said than done because turns out, insecurities are real, but still, the pursuit of owning those insecurities, recognizing them and developing a more positive relationship with them. Note, not just getting rid of them, but developing a positive relationship with your insecurities. That is a goal that is attainable and allows you to show up as you are in more spaces, then lets your competence shine through. But yes. And so I love the way that you put that. It's not about the actual achievement of competence. It's about the steps towards it that you do competently that set you up. So that day, that moment, that meeting, that speech, that race, that whatever, it's like, well, I did everything I could. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, the thing itself is just the victory lap.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like the thing itself is the victory lap. Everything else that's the work actually. Like I saw an interview with some summer Olympian who said something like, the journalist was like, wow, you earned a lot of medals today. And he was like, no, I earned the medals over the course of the last year. I just collected them today. And I was like, yes, that's perfect. Perfect.
Yep.
I earned the medals in training. I picked them up today.
Yeah. I picked them up.
Like, I love that. I love that. Like, that's exactly it.
Yep.
So
I love it. LGO, it has been so fun getting to hang out with you. Just the wisdom, truth bombs that you dropped on it. I loved hearing about who you were when you were younger, a little bit about your family, and a little bit or a whole lot of it about your journey of how you got here today. Thank you for just being an incredible human being and being you. Not that you know how to be anybody else. That would be contradictory to everything we talked about today. But still, I just really appreciate you. And I hope that maybe we'll get you back here in the diner again. And it's been so special getting to hang out with you. And thank you for the greatness and the thoughts that you put in this world that cause us all to take a beat and think about, what am I doing? What does worthiness mean in my life? What does confidence mean in my life? What does enough mean in my life? I appreciate you, LGO. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right, y'all. That was my time with the wonderful LGO, incredible human being. Dropped some amazing books on you, Limitless, Mission Driven. Make sure that you check those out. Also, follow her on Instagram. Hey, LGO, she is worth your time. And if you can also try to get in, if you have the opportunities, I'm not sure where you are in life. I don't know how she's accepting clients in the coaching realm, but I know I got a little bit of a coaching session from LGO. It was about 7 minutes, and it caused me to think differently. That's the power of someone who asks really powerful questions and does it in the way that she does. I'm really grateful that she is someone who I'm connected with, and I'm really grateful that you are now also someone who is in that circle as well. Thank you so much for coming to the diner. And the next time we hang out, y'all, until then, keep punching small talk in the face by asking better questions. You all take care.